Bernie Sanders is going after the old-fashioned racism of Donald Trump. Now, in front of a reporter crowd of 2,800 people in Las Vegas on Sunday, Senator Sanders said this about Trump and his anti-immigrant position.
For Donald Trump or anyone else in this country to refer to people from Mexico as rapists and criminals. That is not an American value. That is old-fashioned racism, and we will not tolerate it.
Now, he also adds that it is not an American value to talk about rounding up millions of people and simply say that we're going to throw them out of the country. That is xenophobia. Now, other stuff he mentioned in his speech was, of course, prison reform, but I thought that was really important that he pointed out this anti-immigrant rhetoric that's been going on, not just from Donald Trump, but it's been relevant in the right wing for quite a while. And what was interesting is during their last election loss, during their post-mortem analysis of the Mitt Romney campaign, they even realized that, hey, we're not reaching out enough to immigrants, especially to Latinos. Well, apparently they haven't even taken that lesson to heart at all, as they're back to the same old tricks. Now, on Donald Trump, he's very popular because he's been demagoguing the issue of immigration. Now, let me point out some of his policy positions on immigration in case you're not familiar. His policy: build a wall with a shiny door. That is after kicking out 11 million people and then make Mexico pay for the wall. The question is that any rational person would and has asked, how do we pay for that? How do we pay for the deportation of 11 million people while lowering taxes for corporations, businesses, and the middle class, as his tax policy purports to do, and also purports to do it while staying revenue neutral? I'd love to see how the math works out. Oh, right, it doesn't. Trump's tax plan wouldn't be revenue neutral. According to the Tax Foundation, Trump's plan would reduce revenues to the Treasury by more than $10 trillion over 10 years. That's assuming that it will have the dynamic effect. Remember, the Tax Policy Center is very, very pro-business, pro-corporate, kind of a right-wing tax foundation, right? Even they're like, no, dude, that math doesn't even work out. Under the best-case scenario, Trump's tax plan costs $10 trillion over 10 years. It's $1 trillion a year. Jesus, that's a lot. That's on top of everything else. Most experts agree that even that dynamic effect that they talk about, the supply side economics, doesn't work. It doesn't create growth. So even that is a very, very conservative estimate. Guaranteed it would probably cost the country so much more than $10 trillion. But I can guarantee you that his tax policy, while progressive in some areas, as in hitting the hedge fund guys with a higher tax and lowering taxes or limiting taxes for low-income people, great. That's not what's bringing out the crowds. No, what's bringing out the crowds is the hatred of immigrants, the anti-Latino, the anti-Mexican rhetoric. That's what's bringing them out. Now, some people will argue, oh, Jeff, no, it's because he wants to make America great again. It's on his hat. Yeah, a slogan on a hat's not really going to do much. A slogan is a slogan. It doesn't mean anything. It's almost like, ironically, hope and change. And yes, this is coming from a guy who fell for hope and change. No longer. Look, he wants to do this, make America great again, by kicking out all the immigrants. Well, it's not going to do a whole lot. In fact, that'll actually probably be a disaster for certain parts of the economy, mainly agriculture. No, but Americans will do those jobs. Oh, really? Yeah, I don't see that happening. I don't see those as being great jobs. Most Americans, the reason that immigrants will take those jobs is because most Americans won't. To anybody who says that, oh, they're stealing our jobs. Go and do one of those jobs that's taken over by an immigrant. I can guarantee you those are not good jobs. That's why we leave it to people who will work for almost nothing. I've worked next to immigrants. I've actually worked in the fields when I was a teenager picking strawberries. It was not a good job. You did not get paid very much. And yes, I was surrounded probably by undocumented immigrants. I was there. I've lived it. And yes, I was working there to try to get some extra money for the summer. Once again, not a good choice. But anyway. So, here's the thing, too, about Donald Trump. So, on some of the things he gets right, he does attack China, and he does attack Mexico. But he says, they're taking our jobs. But what he gets wrong about that is that, no, they're not stealing it. Mexico, the leaders of Mexico aren't sitting in a smoke-filled room saying, how do we steal American jobs? No, that's not what's happening. It's corporations that are outsourcing their jobs so they can make an extra buck on cheap labor. And you could even talk about how American foreign policy, especially in the case of Mexico, has crashed our economy. What we did with corn, our massive amounts of corn subsidies, we destroyed the corn market. Hashtag corn. We did that. And of course, that's one reason why we did have a massive influx of immigrants, because we destroyed their farming industry. So they come here and pick our vegetables. That's what happened. You can look it up. There's information all over when it comes to that. Our corporations moving to China. It's not because China is stealing it. It's because our rich executives are going, we can save money if we go over to China where they have suicide nets. So blame China for that. No, I say put the blame squarely where it belongs, on greedy CEOs. It's not as if you can't make money here in America. We have one of the strongest economies. Even when we had a lot of trade protections, and we didn't have NAFTA or CAFTA or any of that other bullshit, or what's coming, the TPP, which is going to make things arguably worse. That's one thing Donald Trump was absolutely right on. The TPP is a coming disaster, and it's going to be even worse than NAFTA or CAFTA. But anyway, no. Donald Trump doesn't really have any policies, but he's got a lot of demagoguery, and he's very, very strong when it comes to rhetoric and his personality. Now, people love a strong personality. Couple that with, of course, his fourth grade language skills, meaning he can pretty much talk to anybody at their level, and there you go. That's what's bringing the crowds out. That's why he's popular. And let's be honest, Bernie Sanders is right. Racism, old-fashioned racism, is a huge part of not only Trump's platform, but a lot of the Republicans. A lot of that platform is built on racism and anti-immigrant nationalism, essentially. And look, Sanders is sort of wrong when he says this isn't America, right? This is an American value. Actually, sadly, it has been an American value. It's a value as old as America. Remember, we kept out the Chinese in the 1800s. They were working on our rail lines. And then we decided we don't want any more Chinese people coming over and working for us. They're stealing our jobs. No, that sounds familiar. We also had the Irish. Anti-immigrant sentiments against the Italians, like in the 1920s. And now we have the Mexicans. Trump is just the latest in a long line of people that get popular by spouting anti-immigrant rhetoric, especially in the case of where people are seeing their wages decline. People have been seeing their standard of living decline. Their wages are stagnant. They're not doing better. And they need someone to blame. And here comes Donald Trump, one of the elites, by the way. One of the elites saying, no, it's not us. It's not Even though we've been taking 100% of the gains since the recession and a bigger share of income for the last 30 years, it's not our fault. No, it's those immigrants coming over and taking your job. It's their fault. They're over here, you're taking your job, they're taking your welfare. Go after them, not us. He's just another one of those guys. The real problem is people like Trump. People who are born with a silver spoon in their mouth. And people that game the system to their own benefit, while you're too busy blaming the immigrant for all of your problems.